what do you think is going on with Aaron Rodgers? Ear to the ground, talking to people, not even that. But what do you think is up with him in Green Bay? Chris?
Man, I just think it's one of those things that you have to consider Aaron's entire experience in football. Like, his formative years have been, like, anybody would say they'd want to be Aaron Rodgers, right? Like, we'd all trade places, right? But at the same time, like, you know, to Aaron Rodgers, you know, it's all he knows is being Aaron Rodgers, and it wasn't always easy. You know, I know nobody's going to feel sorry for him now, but, you know, JUCO kid, right? Cal guy, wasn't like a heralded star in college, and was a guy who sat and gave the NFL free B-roll. I always tell guys, I'm like, do you really want to sit in that draft room and give the NFL free B-roll for a decade? He gave them plenty, and then sat behind Favre, and those differences were documented. And then the entire, you know, draft pick deficit there when it comes to investment and, like, outwardly at the top of the draft what he wants to do. And I think the worst part about Aaron is even when he succeeds, he's arguing against himself, because I don't know how those guys would be. A lot of the guys he's throwing to south of Devontae Jones, I don't know, or Devontae Adams, sorry. I don't know who those guys are, and that's what Aaron does. He makes everybody better. So, like, even when you know, if you're trying to make a case that he doesn't have enough weapons, he's so good he's going to elevate guys' games to the point where they are scoring 30 a game. So I think, you know, there's a chip on his shoulder, and I think what he wants is security. And the only way you prove to a quarterback like that he has security in the building where he's won a Super Bowl and wants to win two. You know, Brett won one, and, you know, there's a certain quarterback that played 16 years there. He's on his 16th or 17th year. Like,
yep.
I think he wants to finish in Green Bay. And I think it's just up to Green Bay to say, like, hey, we're not going to stick to our plan we had 2 years ago when we bet on his demise. He just played like an MVP, so let's be logical about this. The ball's coming off his arm like nothing you'd ever seen, and he's 38 years old. So, like, it's time to not bet against him and show him some love. And I think, like, if he got traded, like, let's say he got traded to Denver, Rich, what are they not going to have by virtue of him getting traded to Denver? The 2 first-round picks that he's arguing like hell over filling with a weapon. So, you know, it's kind of a wash for him. I think the best chance he has to win it all is in Green Bay. I think they have to commit to him.
I agree with you. And then, but here's my question for you, Chris Long, because, you know, security is definitely one thing. And, you know, I totally understand that. And then you pointed out, rightfully so, that he makes guys better, and that he knows who he's throwing to, and he knows which guys he can make better just by that aspect. And then you hear that the cutting of Jake Kumaro after he said last September that he loves this kid, he thinks that he can throw to him. They cut him the next day, as he said, the last time I said publicly I like somebody, he wound up in Buffalo, referring to this kid. So my question for you is, do you like the idea of allowing a quarterback to have a say in roster building? Would you say that that is a good way to go about things in the NFL?
I think he deserves a seat at the table. I think quarterbacks transcend, and listen, I hit him for a living, and
yes,
like most defensive players would tell you, we don't like him or whatever, but, like, you can't win without one. You can, but it's going to be an interesting process in building. And is it sustainable to win without one year after year? Like, you could, you know, have your 1 year where the defense is a top 5 defense and that sort of thing, but I feel like you got to have a seat at the table. And I think we worry about the slippery slope thing where, like, oh, it's going to turn into the NBA. It's going to turn into like a league where players just have all the say, like, you know, whether you like that or not. It's not, because there's not many Aaron Rodgers. So why are we worried about it being a slippery slope? And it's not like the Packers are necessarily like the world's best, you know, have the world's best draft history. I mean, I'm not saying they're the worst. I'm not saying they're the best, but I think he at least deserves a place at the table when talking about offensive personnel. And the same thing with Russell, and the same thing with, like, any top 5 quarterback in the league. It's not that hard to tell who should and who shouldn't be talking about this stuff. There's a Mendoza line for quarterbacks we talked about on the pod. Like, where's that Mendoza line for quarterbacks that's south of here should just shut up? But it's up to that quarterback to know.
Yeah, and I you know, you heard Ron Wolf basically say that quarterbacks are divas. Terry Bradshaw, you know, say that Aaron in particular is weak because of all this. And I don't understand that, you know, concept, because they know more than anybody else, certainly Ron Wolf, that the financial construct of the league under the new CBA does not mean that, like, say, for Bradshaw, Mark Malone gets drafted, that they have to play. Back in 1980, they didn't have to play him by year 3 to see if there was a fifth-year option to pick up, and Ron Wolf didn't have to build a team under that construct either. Like, the minute you draft somebody like Jordan Love, you know the kid's got to get on the field within 3 years, and so does Aaron. He doesn't want to give him another freebie in 2021 like he did last year. Like, I thought, and I love Terry. Terry's like a family member to me, and it's okay. I disagree with my dad on stuff all the time. So if he's my dad's brother, you know I'm going to disagree with him sometimes. But, like, I didn't agree, and I thought it was apples to oranges. And I think you talk about leverage, and, yeah, we don't read people up this early generally in the NFL. Well, they read D-Hop up like sight unseen last year in Arizona, and certainly he deserved that. But there is a precedent that if there's a guy that's you really want to take care of, you can do it, especially when he's the reason that you've been relevant as a franchise. Like, you know how lucky you are as a franchise to go from, like, Brett Favre to another Hall of Famer? Like, it's incredible. And in Indy, for a second, we thought we were going that way with Peyton to Andrew, and Andrew left early. And, it just goes to show how lucky you are as a franchise when you go from one Hall of Famer to the next. You owe him. You owe him a little something, and especially when the franchise's leverage is sitting right there in the meeting room. He's sitting right there in the meeting room every day staring you in the face. Like, of course you're going to come to the table with a chip on your shoulder. You bet against me. And that's the thing about, like, the disconnect. Teams can bet against players. Players can't bet against teams. It's like the allegiance has to be 100% one way. But not the other way, and that's kind of a tired complaint. But we're talking about the best in the game. I do think at some point you gotta commit to them. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.